Hello everyone and welcome to azamsharp School. Now you might be wondering, why do I have Colorado Parks and Wildlife homepage open? All right. Now, I don't really live in Colorado. I live in Texas, but I love Colorado. It's one of my favorite places to visit, and I go there pretty much every single year. So I thought, wouldn't it be a great idea that if I can create an application, and we can even call it Explore Colorado or Beautiful Colorado, and it will just have all the amenities, all the things that Colorado provides. So this can be parks and trails and restaurants and museums and everything. All right. So that is the main idea for this series of videos that I will be creating. Now, the first thing I will be targeting would be parks and trails, because I think that is one of the main things that people visit Colorado, and at least what I like to do is just hiking on those amazing trails. And we'll be looking at where do we get all the different parks in Colorado, because there are other parks apart from Rocky Mountains. And then we'll try to see where can we get trails, for different parks, especially for Rocky Mountains. Where can we get those trails so that we can see how long those trails are, what kind of information is even available online, right? So let's see over here. I'm going to search for NPS API. NPS stands for National Park Service. It's a government API. And you can see over here that if you simply go to nps.gov and simply search for nps.gov API, this is the API documentation. And it's a pretty detailed documentation. I mean, they have activities in the park, they have articles, events, but what we're looking for is just the parks, this one. Retrieve data about national park addresses, context, description, hours of operation, and they do provide an API endpoint where we can get the parks. So that can be a really good starting point for us if we just want to target parks. I mean, that's pretty much one of the big things that people do in Colorado, apart from also skiing. We'll check it out later on, skiing and all those kind of fun stuff. So let's see. So in this particular video, what I want to do is create some sort of a basic setup for our application, Explore Colorado, and we will try to display at least some information regarding parks. So make sure that you are on this website. I'll add a link to this, and you have to request an API key. See that over here? Once you request your API key, then you have to put it right there, because without the API key, you will not be able to use this. All right. And then we'll be able to see that what exactly this is returning. So if you see their documentation, this is kind of like the sample data that they're returning. So they are returning something like that. Okay, we have the data. And we can even, pass in some other stuff over here. Like I can say, try it out. I do have to pass in the API key, but since we're only interested in Colorado, you can actually change the state code to CO, which is Colorado. Number of results, limit, start, and all that. We can execute, but when you execute right now, you can see that it is complaining that, hey, you gotta pass in the key. All right. Now, you have to request your own key if you're interested in following along. So make sure that you request your own key. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly put in the key, and then I'm going to show you the result that we're going to get. All right. If you're interested in watching and also following the complete series of Explore Colorado videos, then you have to subscribe to azamsharp School. I will be uploading some videos on YouTube, so you can definitely check it out over there. But if you are interested in following the complete series, then it will be available on azamsharp School, which is the largest catalog for iOS development videos. Simply go to azamsharp School, click on courses. You have access to tons and tons and tons of courses. As you can see, I actually purchased a brand new course on StoreKit integration for subscriptions. And if you're interested in watching the Explore Colorado series, that will be in azamsharp Pro member content only. Let's go ahead and open that up. And over here, you can see all the different videos that are available. So Explore Colorado will be added over here also as I progress through the course. But on YouTube, you can still watch some parts of it. So hopefully you will enjoy it. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the video. So after I put in the key and I execute the request, and this is only going to give me Colorado, we can see that's a lot of interesting data that we're getting. Full name, Amachi National Historic Site. So that's also a park. It has some sort of a description. It has latitude and longitude as string. It also has a lot of activities like guided tours, self-guided tours, all the other stuff, some contact numbers for the park, email addresses, that's pretty good also, we need that. Directions, fees is empty, entry fees, all of these things are empty, which is kind of weird. I mean, some of these parks does have fees, like I think Rocky Mountain is like $35 for the whole week, maybe it's a little bit more now, but we can definitely check it out. So you can see the hours, addresses, all of that stuff. And I think if you scroll down, you will eventually find Rocky Mountain. So you can see, I think for Colorado, it returns you probably like 10 or 12 different parks. It's going to return you like the main ones. So these are all the main ones. And I am looking for the main one, which is the Rocky Mountain, of course. Love Rocky Mountains. So let's see if we can find Rocky Mountain California National Historic Trail. I think that's just the name of it. All right, let's see over here. Do we have more parks over here? National Historic Trail, Colorado National Monument. I mean, you can see it's a pretty detailed record, all right? And I think there will be obviously more parks, but I think it's limited because we're doing pagination, all right? So it's going to be way more parks that is going to be returning. So we have to take into account those things also. Yeah, so you can see, I mean, there are many different parks that are being returned. Crystal Trail View. These are just images, so we also have to display images also. So there are a lot of different parks available. Dinosaur National Monument. So that's also some sort of a park, all right? So that's good. It is returning a lot of data, so you have to make sure that you have requested the key, and the key will be sent to your email, and then you can go, I showed you earlier on, authorize, click the authorize button, and you can simply plug in your key, all right? Okay, so this is a good start. We can definitely see that we're getting the data which we need, and the next step would be to try to display at least the name and the description of the park on our screen. So let's go ahead and get started with that. All right, everyone, welcome back. So I've already created the Explore Colorado Xcode project. And the first thing I want to do is to create all the different DTOs or the models that the JSON will map to, right? Now you can make those models by hand, but you have already seen there's a lot of stuff over there. So what I'm doing is I'm using Postman to make the request, and you can see it is returning me the same, Colorado parks. Make sure that you insert your own API key. That's the most important part. And it's returning me all of this data, right? So I can actually copy all of this data, and I can go back to, now there are a lot of different websites that are available also that you can just put in the JSON and it can automatically create you the models, or you can just ask ChatGPT, create Swift models for this JSON. Go ahead and put all of that. Okay, I don't think it was too big, but what we can do is, okay, it's too big, all right. So let's see. Okay, so what we will do is we will try to just grab one of them. It's going to be a little bit hard, but I'm going to try my best to grab one of them. Let's see, weather info. I think, oh boy, so you can see that it's kind of hard to grab one of them. Okay, there we go. So that should be one of them at least. And then I'll just create Swift model for JSON. And I think that should be good. There we go. And what Swift is going to do, or ChatGPT is going to do, is going to go through the JSON and it's going to create all the appropriate models so that my JSON can be mapped to Swift. And we can then start using those models. All right. Let me go back over here and set up some folders. I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder. I can create this folder. I can call it models. And inside over here, instead of creating like separate files for one for park, one for park timing, one for this, one for that, I'm just going to create a single file and call it DTOs because these are actually data transfer objects. Wow, it's taking a lot of time to create these things, but hopefully it's gonna create that. So there we go, it's writing all of this stuff down. Now this will be the exact mapping of the JSON that I have provided. All right, so you can see that it is creating entrance fee contacts. That will be a little bit of a problem because context is already something, in a context framework, but I guess we're not going to refer to that one. And I think it's done. Okay, let's go ahead and copy it. And let's go ahead and build it. Okay, build is successful. So that's actually pretty good that the build is successful. So these are all the different models that are created based on the JSON that I have provided. And we will be able to access anything that we need using these models. All right. The next step that we want to do is we want to perform networking. We want to have a URL that we can go to and we can go ahead and fetch the parts. So let me go ahead and add a different file over here. I'll call it HTTP client. And for starting out, I'm just going to create HTTP client as a very, very simple struct. It will have one single function, which will be load parks. But then eventually we'll see that, hey, maybe it will be a good idea to make it more generic. But let's start really simple, load parks, because that's what we're trying to load, right? Just parks. And it will be an async function, throwable function. And yeah, you can see that it's going to be returning parks. URL session.shared.data task. Again, all of these things we're going to be changing later on. We need to provide some sort of a URL over here, some sort of a URL. And it is going to return us data and it's going to return us a response. We can ignore the response for now. Keep in mind that we are just trying to display the data and the description of the park right now. And then, yeah, eventually we will make it better. So once we get the data, we can do JSON decoder.decode. Now, it will be interesting to see that what exactly are we decoding. All right, if we go back to our Postman, and if you go on the top, keep in mind that since I am searching for state code Colorado, which is CO, I'm not really getting at the root level the array. I'm getting a dictionary. So don't try to, map it to an array. It's not going to work. It's going to be a dictionary, and inside the dictionary, we have a key called data, which contains all the different parts that we need. So keep that in mind. So that means that I will probably need to create another custom struct. We'll call it park response. It will be codable. You can even just set it to decodable, but codable is fine. And this is going to represent the kind of like the response root, this part. And inside our park response struct, we will create a property called data, which will be an array of parks, because that's what it is, array of parks. Data, and this will be array of parks. So, and park response is something that we are going to be decoding our response to. Let's go back now. Park response dot self. Not sure where that is. Let's go ahead and remove that. Data. And this is going to give us not an array of park, I guess, but it is going to give us a park response. And in that park response, we will have data property, which will be array of parks. All right. Okay, so this is pretty good. This is also done. Now we do need the URL over here. That's the most important part. Without the URL, it's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another folder over here. I'll call it utils, which is for utility. And I can create a new file. Let's call it, what should we call the file? We'll call it constants. So this file will hold all the different constants and messages and all that stuff. You can even create internal structs over here. And then we can say over here, parks, URL. There we go. And then we can put the URL over here. Now, make sure that you put the URL, which will look something like this. And obviously, make sure that you have the actual key. Don't put your key over here, or else it's not going to work. It's not going to give you anything. All right, so put your key over here, your actual key, basically. All right. Okay, and now we can actually use this URLs. So I can go back over to my code, and I can say over here, constants.urls and parks. And it's going to be the whole thing anyways. It's going to be the URL, so we don't really have to pass it to the URL. And keep in mind that I will update parks behind the scene to have the actual key over here, or else it will not work. All right. So I will do that. Okay, so the next step that we want to take is how do we access HTTP client in our application? And there are many different ways of accessing HTTP client. Some people like to create view models. Some people like to create stores. But if you're starting really simple, why don't we just expose HTTP client as an environment value that we can then access it inside our views? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and create another folder over here. I'll call it extensions, because in environment values, you add a new environment value by extending it. So I'm going to go ahead and say environment values plus extensions. There we go. Let's import SwiftUI, extension, environment values, and we can use the entry macro to add a new macro over here. We'll call it HTTP client, and the value will be simply, we're just creating HTTP client instead, and that's it. And this entry macro is actually pretty cool. You can right click on it and you can say expand macro, and you can see what it is doing behind the scene. So these are the things that we were doing before, but now using the entry macro is actually writing the code for us. So that's actually pretty cool. Next up, I'm going to create a new folder for screens. And we can probably delete this content view because we will not be using it. And over here, we will also remove it. This is the app file. In the screens, let's go ahead and add a new file. We'll call it park list screen. Well, that's a nice name. And in the Explore Colorado app, for now, we can set up the root screen or the root view as a park list screen. And this can change, because in our application, we do want to offer a lot of other stuff also, right? I mean, it's not only about the parks and the trails. It can be about restaurants. It can be about everything related to beautiful Colorado. Okay, So let's go back over here into Park List Screen. And let's go ahead and try to access the, HTTP client. There we go. HTTP client, we can access that now. And now we can actually go ahead and also create a state variable for parks, which will be park. We'll initialize it to be an empty array. Let's go ahead and create a list. Parks. Yeah, we can go iterate through the parks. And then we can say park.fullname. And we can also display the description of the park. So let's probably put it inside a VStack. And we can say park.description. Also, we can do alignment to be leading and maybe a little bit of spacing of like 10. We can say font as a headline. We can also add a little bit of opacity to description. So it's a little bit of a different color. And now with the task modifier, we can call HTTP client.loadParks, which is going to load us something like the parks. Assign it to parks. Now this is going to blow up, meaning it's a try catch function. So for now, we can catch it and then display it like this. And there we go. Isn't that amazing that we are able to load the parks? Now, I'm sure that these are not all the parks. You can see the Rocky Mountain National Park. That's the most important park. I'm sure there are more parks also. We will have to check out the actual documentation for that. But, these are at least some of the parks that we are able to load. And, we can actually wrap all of this stuff in a navigation stack. And over here, we can add a navigation title. Nice and simple. Simple code is the best code. And you have seen that we're writing really nice, simple code to get all the different parks of Colorado. Or, well, not all the parks. I guess these are like 10 parks. There are a lot more parks available. So this means that we will need to do some sort of a pagination. We need to add some sort of a search criteria for it also. There are a lot of parks available. And that will be, a fun project. Okay. But in our first video over here, we're able to display the parks, at least 10 of them, whatever is being returned. We have a long way to go, obviously. We have to make sure that the HTTP client doesn't have these separate functions, but it's more of a generic networking layer where we can pass in different models, or we can accompany different models, we can use different models. Also, every single time I refresh the preview right now, it's going to make an actual request, HTTP request to the National Park Service API and going to get all the parks. That's not really efficient. For me, it's fine, but we're just trying to communicate with NPS again and again, and maybe they will not like it. They're like, hey, what's this person doing? That person is requesting like 500 times in every 5 minutes. So we need to do something about that also. All right. So hopefully you're enjoying it. Let me know how much you're enjoying this. And I think it's going to be a really good series where you will learn from start to finish how to create a Explore Colorado application. Thank you so much.